For most of human history, the greatest cities on Earth were not lost because they were destroyed. They were lost because we couldn't see them. Dense forests, shifting sands, farmland, and modern cities erased their outlines so completely that even when we stood directly on top of them, we had no idea what lay beneath our feet. For generations, archaeologists believed ancient civilizations were smaller, simpler, and more isolated than modern cities, because that was all the ground seemed to show. But in the last few decades, something changed. Instead of digging deeper, we started looking higher. And what we saw from above forced us to redraw the map of the ancient world. The first shock came from the Amazon, a place long described as a, quote, green hell, incapable of supporting large populations. For centuries, scholars argued that the rainforest was too acidic, too wet, too fragile to sustain cities. At best, they thought small tribes lived along rivers, constantly moving, never settling. Then aircraft equipped with LiDAR began scanning the forest canopy. LiDAR doesn't photograph the ground, it fires millions of laser pulses that slip through gaps in the leaves and bounce back from the earth below, stripping the jungle away digitally. What emerged stunned everyone. Beneath the trees were vast networks of straight roads, raised causeways, defensive walls, canals, and geometric plazas. In Bolivia's Llanos de Mojos region, archaeologists identified the remains of large urban centers, linked by causeways, stretching for kilometers, surrounded by engineered landscapes designed to control flooding and improve agriculture. These were not random settlements. They were planned cities with neighborhoods, ceremonial centers, and infrastructure built to last. Some of these complexes covered areas comparable to medieval European cities. The people who built them were shaping the rainforest, not fighting it, creating fertile soils and water systems that allowed dense populations to thrive for centuries. The Amazon was not untouched wilderness. It was a human-made environment that only looked wild after its cities were abandoned and swallowed by vegetation. And the Amazon was only the beginning. On the other side of the world, in Southeast Asia, something even larger was hiding in plain sight. Angkor in Cambodia was known for centuries as the home of Angkor Wat, one of the largest religious monuments ever built. But Angkor was treated as a temple complex, not a city. The surrounding jungle was assumed to be empty. When LiDAR surveys expanded outward, the truth became impossible to ignore. Angkor was not a city in the modern sense. It was a low-density megacity sprawling across hundreds of square kilometers. Beneath the forest canopy lay a massive grid of roads, reservoirs, canals, embankments, and residential zones. Water management was the heart of this system. The Khmer engineered enormous barrages, artificial lakes that regulated seasonal floods and droughts, feeding rice fields year-round. This hydraulic network supported a population that may have reached close to 1 million people at its peak, making Angkor one of the largest urban centers on Earth, long before London or Paris reached similar scales. Yet from the ground, it all looked like forest. Temples rose like islands, while the city itself dissolved back into the landscape. Without seeing from above, Angkor's true size was invisible. Central America revealed the same pattern. For decades, Maya cities were thought to be ceremonial hubs surrounded by small farming villages. Sites like Tikal and Calakmul were impressive, but they seemed isolated, swallowed by jungle. When LiDAR surveys were conducted over northern Guatemala, archaeologists suddenly saw tens of thousands of previously unknown structures. Entire urban regions appeared overnight. Causeways connected cities across swamps. Terraces covered hillsides for intensive agriculture. Defensive walls and fortifications suggested periods of warfare at a scale never imagined before. The Maya lowlands were not sparsely populated ceremonial landscapes. They were densely occupied, heavily modified environments supporting millions of people. The jungle had not grown around the ruins. It had grown over cities after they were abandoned. What made these discoveries so unsettling isn't the size, it was their implication. If entire civilizations of this scale could disappear so completely, How many others were still hidden? The Sahara offered an answer. Today, it is the largest hot desert on Earth, a barrier of sand and rock. But satellite imagery revealed ghost rivers beneath the dunes, ancient lakebeds, and traces of settlements aligned along vanished waterways. One of the most striking sights was Garama, capital of the Garamantes, a civilization once dismissed as minor desert nomads. From the ground, little remained. From space, an entire irrigation system appeared. Underground channels known as fogras tapped fossil groundwater and fed fields, supporting a thriving city deep in the desert. Roman texts spoke of the Garamantes with confusion, unable to explain how a powerful society existed in such a harsh place. The answer was engineering. They built a landscape that no longer exists. When the climate shifted and the water failed, the cities faded into sand, leaving almost no trace at ground level. Across the Atlantic again, in Ecuador's Upano Valley, LiDAR revealed a network of ancient settlements arranged in grids, complete with plazas, roads, and agricultural zones. These sites were buried beneath volcanic soil and forest growth, overlooked for decades. When LiDAR surveys were conducted over northern Guatemala, archaeologists suddenly saw tens of thousands of previously unknown structures. Entire urban regions appeared overnight. Causeways connected cities across swamps. Terraces covered hillsides for intensive agriculture. Defensive walls and fortifications suggested periods of warfare. The scale suggested coordinated planning across generations. These were not temporary villages. They were long-lived urban systems connected through trade and shared culture. Similar revelations emerged in Africa, where satellite data exposed ancient road networks and settlement patterns surrounding Great Zimbabwe, showing it was not an isolated stone complex, but the center of a much larger managed landscape tied to regional trade routes stretching to the Indian Ocean. Over and over, the pattern repeated. Civilizations were not lost because they collapsed into nothing. They were lost because nature reclaimed their infrastructure, and human memory shrank them into myths. From the ground, history looks fragmented. From the sky, it becomes whole again. And this raises a dangerous question. If so, many ancient cities were invisible until now, not because they were small, but because we lacked the perspective to see them. Then, what else is still hidden beneath forests, deserts, and modern cities? The sky did not invent these civilizations, it simply revealed what was always there. Waiting for the moment when humans finally learned how to look properly. Once we realized that entire cities could vanish without a trace, archaeology stopped being only about ruins and started becoming a science of detection. The next frontier was not just forests and deserts, but the ground beneath our own cities and the seas that swallowed the coastlines of the ancient world. Along the shores of the Mediterranean, underwater surveys began revealing that many ancient ports were never abandoned, they were drowned. Sea levels rose, earthquakes struck, and coastlines shifted, quietly dragging civilizations underwater. Off the coast of Egypt, divers and remote submersibles mapped the remains of Thonis Heraclean, a city once considered legendary. Beneath layers of silt lay temples, statues, harbors, and streets preserved in eerie stillness. Massive stone gods lay face down in the mud exactly where they fell when the ground liquefied. The city had not eroded away. It had slipped beneath the sea in a geological instant. Similar discoveries followed near Greece, where submerged settlements revealed stone houses, plazas, and roads, now resting meters below the waves, built at a time when sea levels were far lower. These were not shipwrecks or isolated ruins. They were towns frozen at the moment rising water erased coastlines. On land, technology turned inward, scanning beneath modern cities where digging is impossible. In Rome, ground-penetrating radar revealed entire neighborhoods still intact below later construction, stacked like geological layers of human ambition. In London, beneath office buildings and train tunnels, archaeologists identified Roman roads, markets, and cemeteries that had simply been built over and forgotten. These were not mysteries of collapse, but of continuity. Cities didn't vanish. They were entombed by their own success. In China, satellite imagery exposed ancient road grids and walled cities buried under farmland. Their outlines visible only from space during droughts when crops grew differently above stone foundations. The same effect revealed prehistoric monuments across Europe, ghost shapes appearing briefly in fields, like photographic negatives of forgotten worlds. Even Ice Age landscapes began re-emerging. As glaciers melted and permafrost thawed, archaeologists discovered preserved hunting camps, tools, and even footprints, tens of thousands of years old, showing that humans occupied and adapted to environments once believed uninhabitable. In Siberia and Alaska, animal migration routes carved into the land guided early human movement, their traces still faintly visible from above. What unified these discoveries was not destruction, but misinterpretation. We assumed absence meant non-existence. We believed silence meant simplicity. Instead, it meant we were looking at the wrong scale. Ancient people were not isolated dots on a map. They were networked societies shaping entire regions, altering ecosystems, redirecting water, carving roads, and building cities designed to last. When climate shifted, trade routes collapsed, or political systems failed, those cities did not always burn. Many were simply abandoned, reclaimed by vegetation, sediment, and time. Their disappearance was gradual, almost polite. No drama, no ruins left standing, just outlines erased one season at a time. And perhaps the most unsettling realization was this. Many of these lost cities fell not because of invasion or disaster, but because they succeeded too well. Their populations strained water systems. Their landscapes were engineered to their limits. When conditions changed, even slightly, the systems failed. The cities were not fragile, they were precise. And precision leaves little room for error. As archaeology expanded upward and outward, the past stopped being a sequence of isolated marvel and started looking like a continuous experiment in urban living, one that humanity has been running for thousands of years. The cities we live in today are not unprecedented. They are echoes, built on lessons learned and forgotten many times before. And as technology continues to peel back the layers of earth, forest, and sea, one truth becomes unavoidable. The ancient world was not empty, primitive, or quiet. It was crowded, loud, interconnected, and far more advanced than we ever gave it credit for. We are not discovering lost civilizations. We are rediscovering ourselves. As these discoveries accumulate, archaeology is being forced to confront a deeper question, not just where ancient people lived, but how much they understood about the world they were shaping. Across continents, evidence now shows that many ancient societies were not merely adapting to nature, they were actively managing it, on a scale once thought impossible without modern science. In the Amazon basin, what was long described as untouched wilderness is now known to be a human-modified landscape engineered over centuries through soil enrichment, controlled burning, canals, causeways, and planned settlements. The forest itself became infrastructure, designed to produce food sustainably while resisting erosion and flooding. Similar patterns emerged in Southeast Asia, where ancient Khmer engineers created vast hydraulic systems that regulated water across entire regions, supporting populations numbering in the hundreds of thousands. These were not simple irrigation ditches. They were dynamic networks of reservoirs, channels, and spillways that required constant maintenance and precise understanding of seasonal cycles. When political authority weakened or climate patterns shifted, the systems failed, not because they were primitive, but because they were finely tuned. In the Andes, terraced cities carved into mountainsides reveal mastery of microclimates, allowing crops to grow at altitudes and slopes that defy modern agricultural logic. These terraces stabilized hillsides, conserved water, and created thermal buffers that protected plants from frost. In North America, mound-building cultures reshaped river valleys and floodplains, constructing ceremonial centers aligned with celestial events while also managing trade routes and food distribution across vast distances. None of this required writing systems that survive to the present, yet the planning is unmistakable. Even more striking is what genetics has added to the picture. Ancient DNA studies now show that human populations mixed, migrated, and adapted far more frequently than once believed. The idea of isolated, linear civilizations has collapsed. Instead, history looks like a braided river, with cultures diverging, merging, and influencing one another across millennia. Technologies once attributed to single regions now appear to have multiple points of origin, or to have spread through contact rather than conquest. Fire management, agriculture, metallurgy, and urban planning emerge again and again, independently, wherever conditions allowed. This challenges the assumption that progress follows a single path. There was no universal blueprint for civilization. There were many experiments, some lasting centuries, others only generations. What unites them is intention. These societies planned for the future. They invested labor in landscapes their descendants would inherit. They built cities not as temporary camps, but as statements of permanence. And yet permanence was always conditional. Climate shifted, rivers changed course, trade networks fractured, political legitimacy eroded. The archaeological record is filled not with sudden apocalypses, but with quiet endings, places slowly emptied. As people chose survival over tradition, that may be the most modern lesson of all. The past is not a gallery of failures. It is a record of choices made under pressure. Today, as we face environmental change, urban expansion, and fragile infrastructure on a global scale, the ancient world feels less distant than ever. We are living inside the same experiment, testing how complex systems respond to stress. Archaeology does not tell us what will happen next, but it tells us what has happened before, again and again, across different cultures, climates, and continents. The cities hidden beneath forests, deserts, oceans, and modern streets are not warnings carved in stone. They are conversations left unfinished. Each new scan, each buried wall, each forgotten road adds another sentence. And the story they are telling is clear. Humanity has always been capable of extraordinary organization, creativity, and resilience. But those qualities require balance. When systems become too rigid, too optimized, too dependent on stability, they become vulnerable. The ancient cities we are uncovering did not fail because their people were ignorant. They failed because they were human. And in rediscovering them, layer by layer, we are not uncovering a lost world. We are uncovering a mirror. History doesn't disappear. It waits. And if you want to be there when it speaks again, subscribe now.